Good evening, everyone. My name's Dave Berman. I'm the Township Manager here in Haverford Township, and I am pleased to introduce the folks from EPA who have graciously accepted our invitation to come and present the next phase of construction at the Havertown PCP site. They're gearing up for the groundbreaking for construction of a new treatment plant over on Eagle Road. Fortunately for us, it will replace a beautiful tent, and I have a strong feeling that the new treatment plant is going to be both aesthetically pleasing and also very good for the environment. So I think Angela Ithier is the community involvement coordinator. She's on the call, and she's been at the site here in Havertown for quite some time. Josh Barber also is the remedial project manager, who some of you have already met, I think. And Josh has been here for years. And because I work for the government, I can tell you that Josh is a really responsive manager for EPA. I personally am impressed, and I appreciate all you do, Josh. And I also have Eduardo Rivera, the on-site coordinator, who's on the call. And leading the presentation this evening will be Bob Stank, the remedial project manager for EPA. And so I'm going to turn it over. I invite, before I do that, I want to invite folks to use the Q&A feature. And as you have questions, the folks from EPA will be monitoring that and doing their best to either answer you directly, or if it's more appropriate, they'll answer the group. So why don't you go ahead and take over, Bob?
Okay, thank you very much. Josh, if you could pop up the slides.
I'm trying, Dave. It's got disabled screen. Oh, here we go. All right. Here we go. Let me know when you see it, and it's yours.
Yep, we have it. So, Dave, thank you for inviting us to talk in your community. We appreciate the hospitality that we've received here at EPA on the work that we've done and the coordination with you and the Township Council. It's been a great long-term working relationship, a relationship that we're proud to be a part of. So thank you for inviting us in. Okay, next. All right, so Dave introduced most of the people here. Sorry, Eduardo, for missing you on the page. Eduardo's our on-site coordinator and has helped run a lot of projects that have occurred in the area and that are very important to the preparatory work for this plant. Josh has been here to shepherd this process for the past 11 years. He's an expert in the area and has brought us to the point where we're ready for that new plant. Ian Bingham is our geologist. He's our expert of everything underground. He's on family leave at the moment. And we have the Army Corps of Engineers who are listening in. They are going to be assisting us with construction and construction oversight. And of course, Angela Ithier, our community involvement coordinator. She has been here for a few years, and I've worked with her at Doylestown at a previous groundwater treatment plant, and very grateful at the great community involvement that we've had there and also the involvement that we have here. Okay, next. So let me just give you an oversight. Our presentation is about 25 minutes or a half an hour. We hope to give you a clear picture of the history, brief history of the site and overview, the good work done by Josh and Eduardo on recent activity, the large groundwater treatment plant, which special function is to remove the gray tent. So thank you for that, and we look forward to doing that. And overall, to confer to you what you will see in the area, what you can expect to hear, when we will be on site, what it'll look like, and finally our promise and our efforts to be a good neighbor while we're working in your community. Okay. So here's a map of the Havertown PCP site. If you see the large white building in the middle, that's the YMCA and the former gum factory. Eagle Road is the diagonal road crossing in front of it. To the lower left is Lawrence Road, the major intersection in, and above and to the left is Hillcrest. Our entrance to our construction facility is off of Hillcrest. So on the large area where Mr. Storage is now, you'll see a hashed area. That's where the national, what are they called? National Wood Preservers had their construction or their factory. Their focus was on preserving wood, and that's where the contamination source was. That hashed area that you see under Mr. Storage and all the way out to Tony Roney's and over our site is a soil cap that's protective of the environment and removes the risk of exposure. It's a soil cap along with geotextile fabric, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail as we go forward. But that's just our main focus. You'll see a few red dots. They're recovery wells. That's where we extract the groundwater from the aquifer and take it to the treatment plant for purification. And over along the right on the bottom they're labeled CTR. They're groundwater trenches to collect contaminated groundwater, and they were recently installed by Josh and Eduardo to protect the homes on Rittenhouse Circle. So just to give you a general layout of the area that we've been working on for many years. Okay, so a little bit of history about the contamination, and I'm sure Josh has explained this to many residents who are on the phone, and thank you for spending a minute with this, and thank you to the new people who probably want to understand what was happening. So in 1947 through 1991, National Wood Preservatives ran a treatment plant or wood treatment plant on Eagle Road. That's a picture, I think, from 1997 when we were installing the cap. You see Swiss Farms just there in the right-hand corner. You can see their red top. So the contaminant of concern was pentachlorophenol, PCP, we'll call it, but it's not the drug PCP. It's a preservative for wood. It's a very sharp-smelling substance, and it was dissolved in diesel fuel and pressure treated into the wood as a preservative. There's discussion of the source of contamination, and while we're not completely sure, the understanding is that there was a well near Lawrence and Eagle Roads over towards Swiss Farms area, or maybe Tony Roney's area, and waste was injected into that well. Also, there was a lot of surface contamination, as you can expect if they have a yard for this pressure-treated lumber, and that liquid waste drained into the soil. Eventually, contamination on the surface followed surface water and flowed down to Naylor's Run and contaminated a bit of Naylor's Run. So that's the history of the contamination. All right. So EPA has worked on this site for quite a few years. In 1982, it became an official Superfund site. It got registered on the National Priorities List, which is an area that EPA focuses on remediation. In 1989, they initiated a cleanup on the site early on while the company was still in business. In 1997, we showed you those pictures on the previous page where the site was capped to prevent exposure. And so that really eliminated exposure to to humans on that site, and construction occurred with the new businesses after that cap was put in place. In 2000, we put in the first groundwater treatment plant, was constructed, and that was based to extract groundwater from the aquifer that is either seeped down or came from that well. And our goal is to remove the contaminants down to 1 part per billion, a very low number. So if you want to kind of visualize that, it's about a bottle cap full of liquid in a Olympic-sized swimming pool. So quite the removal of contamination. In 2010, there was work done to expand the groundwater well network to make sure that we had containment of the plume and capture of the contaminants, which is the goal of the groundwater treatment plant. And Josh and Eduardo did some really fast, good work to expand remediation to protect the homes along Rittenhouse Circle in 2021. On the right, you'll see that is a groundwater collection vessel put in the ground in, I think, 2021, and that's behind the YMCA, close to Rittenhouse Circle. Okay. And a lot of quick work has continued to occur. So that's the finished site where you saw that large green tank going into the ground. And this additional well work had us look at the treatment plant that was on the site at Eagle Road. We took a look at it, and it was kind of close to the end of its useful life. And we, as the EPA, wanted to add capacity. We thought it was beneficial to collect more groundwater based on this work. So we reviewed the plant and looked at it. It was close to the end of its life. So in 2021, we chose to decommission the plant. And in its place, we put a temporary treatment plant. The temporary treatment plant is doing its job, doing a very good job, treating, I think, around 80 gallons per minute at the moment. And that is the green tent, or the gray tent, that you'll see on Hillcrest and Eagle Road as you pass by. In 2022, you saw the lines on the earlier graph where we put in groundwater collection trench. That was close to this area where the picture is, and that is additional work to protect the homes on Rittenhouse Circle. So work is continuing. Josh and Ian, as well as Sharon, are working on looking at additional modeling that we want to do for groundwater to ensure we're looking at the very, very deep contamination. That's not really an issue of exposure now, but our goal is to get the aquifer back to beneficial use standards. So they've done a lot of work putting in monitoring wells, and we're reviewing that data now with the hopes that there will be some more opportunity when the new plant comes on to treat the aquifer water. Okay. So this is the construction project that we're starting in Havertown, and why we had this meeting. You'll see over in the top right, very similar map to the one before. Again, Eagle Road. In the center is Mr. Storage, and off of Hillcrest, you'll see the gray tent that's kind of famous. Behind that, in the white square, was the original treatment plant. That's been decommissioned and removed. So right now we have an empty lot, and that is going to be the home of our future plant. Okay. So there's an artist's rendering of the plant when completed. It's 10,000 square feet, and it's a $21.5 million project. We have a lot of engineering support. We have a good designer of record who's been working on this site. Matter of fact, our designer designed the original plant and has operated it for most of its lifetime. So we're very fortunate to have their expertise on the site. We have a very good construction company who's getting ready to build this now. Work will be starting very soon. So our plant will be expanded to 175 gallons per minute, up from the 80 gallons per minute that we're treating now. And if you want to get a feel for how much water that is, when you turn on the faucet to fill your tub at full rate, it's about 5 to 7 gallons per minute. So that might give you an idea of what 175 gallons per minute feels like. So the original plant and the process in the original plant has been very successful in removing the PCP contamination, as well as any other minor contamination that we find in the groundwater. And we are mimicking and upgrading that system to the current plant. So we're very confident about the plant's capability to remove contamination. It is well-defined technology. And our focus will be to treat initially at 82 million gallons of water per year in our aquifer. And that material will be discharged through a pipeline over to Nailers Run. All right. So thank you for allowing us to do this work. Thank you for being such a responsive and interested community. And there's more work to come here. So we want to kind of give you an idea of what you will see while we're under construction. We don't anticipate to work during the weekends. It'll be Monday through Friday, 7 to 4. At the beginning, you will see construction equipment, especially backhoes and excavators in order to dig the foundation, as well as concrete trucks to pour the foundation. And that'll occur. It's starting next week. We'll be working on getting equipment on site, and that'll proceed through the end of summer, somewhere around August of 2024. The building that you see over there in the corner, that's a picture of the building from Hillcrest. And that is a prefabricated metal building. So large parts will be delivered on truck, and you will see a crane in the area lifting pieces of that plant into place while we install it. That'll go through midwinter and expected to be finished about February of 2025. So that will be the major work that you will see on site for quite some time. There'll be equipment deliveries, and you'll see construction workers and contractors and engineering professionals working in the building. They will be installing equipment, and we have a picture of what the inside of the plant will look like at the end of this presentation. But most of the focus going forward through September of 2025 will be on the interior. So we expect fall winter to be complete on the site. We will clean up and leave the area in much better stead. We plan to, when the project is complete, to do some landscaping. The EPA now is talking about a phase 2 project. And we're waiting on the study from the models to determine if there's additional work necessary there, in which case we'll come back to you and explain future plans. But for right now, this phase of the project and the $21.5 million project will be finished in late fall or early winter of 2025. Okay. So here's a larger picture, another artist rendering. This is if the sidewalk in the near field is at the YMCA. So the YMCA parking lot is behind you. If you're facing this way, your back is towards the YMCA and you're looking across Eagle Road. And that's the plant there that you see on the right, the tan building. We tried to match it pretty closely to Mr. Storage, which is next door for a little bit of continuity. And over in the corner, you see Swiss Farms, which is an icon in the area, so everybody knows this spot. I haven't been there yet, but I'm intending to try it. So, all right, next. So this is a focus of our construction team, and Angela has helped us be a good neighbor at Doylestown in the past. It's something that the EPA takes very seriously and that we talk often to our contractors about. Angela's coordinated a community update mailing, and we're pretty sure that it's been delivered to the residents and businesses within a half-mile radius. Our contractors, as well as the Army Corps and the EPA personnel who are on site, have copies of that presentation. So if people come by to understand what's going on, we can give them a handout. It has Angela and my contacts information on it, as well as the internet site. And if you have the opportunity to take a look at it, I think it's valuable. So we appreciate the great communications that we've got from Dave and the Board of Commissioners. We've already worked with code enforcement and emergency response, and it's just a great working relationship, and we're very appreciative of that. It's important to us that you, as the residents, feel well informed and understand the work that we do on site. This is pictures from our last site that Angela and I just completed. And up at top is the easement property owner, Mrs. Tilley, and she had often come out to the site for a visit. We're happy to have community members come out once we get close to the end of construction. And down in the bottom is the local fire department, who will make sure we give a tour to and they understand what's going on. We will also certainly do this in Havertown. And look forward to sharing our construction progress with you. So the construction team is very focused. We're focused on minimizing noise and dust. We're focused on minimizing dirt on the road. I really am not happy when I drive my clean car down a road and have dirt on a construction site. And it's a kind of a thing that we really focus on. None of the construction dirt is going to be contaminated with the PCP that we have under the cap, but we will have dust control and monitoring 24. We'll have security on site so that the site is secure during that time frame. So it should be low risk and low impact to the community. We also are going to be very focused on traffic control and equipment deliveries. There'll be flaggers out on the road when large trucks have to make the turn to deliver the building. We don't expect any major road impact, but we'll coordinate with the police department, and we'll have flaggers out there if we have any big equipment going on. And we understand that there's local businesses close by who are impacted by our presence, of Mr. Storage and Tony Roney's and the YMCA across the street, as well as the property owner who has the industrial park where off of Hillcrest, which is right next to our facility. So very much we want to work hard to be low impact. We're very honored that we have had the good relationship over the years with Josh and the community. We take that very seriously at the EPA, and our job is to coordinate and to help protect your community. So thank you very much for the support that you've given EPA over the years. We're really looking forward to working with you in the future. On this last slide on the top right, that's what the inside of a treatment plant looks like. You see all the piping and the equipment, and we have a well-defined, well-engineered technology that we'll be installing for this site. So thank you for your time. And Angela, if you're monitoring, we have questions.
We do. We have a number of questions. So I'm just going to start at the top and we'll work our way down. So first question, are you going to share the results of the additional drilling to determine the accurate summary of how deep and wide the contamination spans?
So Josh, can you fill us in?
Yeah. So we will have an update on that. We've conducted, as Bob was talking, we talked back in March of 2023 about the overall extent of the groundwater contamination that we were aware of and the additional drilling that we were going to do in 2023, and we completed that work with 5 additional deep drilling locations. Where we did identify certain areas where contamination went down as deep as 400 feet below ground surface. So we're working on one more round of drilling that will be put out hopefully later this year, and we'll have an ability to further update our maps and our models and provide, not only will there be a final report, but we can do a presentation like this to provide an overview of the findings regarding kind of where the contamination is going. And that's really going to inform any other areas we want to pump water from in the future as part of this new treatment plant.
Thanks, Josh. And he had a follow-up. So to confirm, we do not yet have the information on how deep and wide the contamination spread. When do you expect to have it? My previous understanding was that would be available in October 2023. You may have just covered it. I just want to go through it so that we address it.
So we do, and so the answer is we have a better definition of the extent of the width and the depth of the contamination. We've bounded the contamination to the west, where we drilled west at the far end of the business park. We found clean water down to 400 feet, and then to the south near Lawrence, right near Lawrence and the intersection of Eagle, we went down 400 feet there, and we found little to no contamination, barely above our cleanup standards. So we find that that's likely a good boundary, but to the east and to the north, we still have some additional delineation to perform, and we'll be coordinating with the property owners in order to gain access for where we want to drill those new wells. So we do have that information, but it's still in the process of being evaluated and put together into a full model.
Thanks, Josh. Next question. The site plan looks good. It looks like you are replacing the sidewalk on Eagle Road. Thanks for that. Can you confirm?
All right. So I'm not exactly sure that the extent of landscaping. It's not defined by the project yet. We leave our projects in good stead at the end. The balance that we have here is we're right now considering a phase 2 project. So there might be some impact to Eagle Road based on Josh's well results. So we will have the plant area done and cleaned up, and either we will be extending for a second piece of project and then complete the beautification of the area. So generally we leave it in good shape. If we make a mess, we will clean it up.
Thanks, Bob. And next question, kind of in the same vein. Does EPA intend to comply with township regulations regarding development within the Eagle Road corridor and install frontage/streetscaping improvements similar to those installed on the adjacent Mr. Storage facility and across the street at the YMCA?
That's a great question. So we met with code enforcement in the town, and EPA intends to be compliant with all code requirements. So we've sent an application with our drawings into the town code enforcement officer, and he's going to work with us out at the site, and yes, we're going to be compliant. Our expectation is that we're going to leave the area in good stead. So the big piece right now, as we're thinking through, is if we're going to have a phase 2 and what that would look like.
Thanks, Bob. Next question, is Naylor's Run Creek considered non-contaminated now?
Josh?
The short answer is mostly. The level of contamination that there is no water. There's no site contaminants detected in the surface water within Naylor's Run. Sporadically, you may find in some of the sediment samples here and there's what I would consider to be leftover relic at low concentrations. We did see with the work that we did beginning in 2019 that there was a storm sewer that runs from Lawrence to back behind Rittenhouse Circle down to discharge into Naylor's Run that we had previously sealed the lower half of that pipe down near where it discharges into Naylor's Run, but the upper area hadn't been sealed. And when the water table was higher in 2018 through 2019, we found that there was contaminated water entering into the pipe and then discharging through the end into Naylor's Run. That pipe was subsequently sealed by Eduardo and his crew, and regular monitoring of the creek has indicated that the very short-lived low concentrations that were being created as a result of that leakage into the pipe have dissipated and it's no longer present. The Pennsylvania DEP is also a partner in this project, and they conduct regular monitoring not only of the groundwater but of the creek surface water and sediment and the biota that live in the creek. So what's left, what little contamination or what little detections that occur are below our cleanup standards, and they're further decreasing or non-detect.
Thanks, Josh. Our next question, does the township have a plan to remedy the rat/rodent problem that will likely ensue as a result from the construction?
So I'm not sure that I can answer it. We have, to my knowledge, not seen rodent rat with the work. Well, I understand that on occasion that can happen. Right now, the plant has been removed, so we just have ground there, and we'll be building a new plant. That's something we pay attention to. It's something we pay attention to on site. We haven't seen any issue with it as of at this moment, but certainly something we pay attention to. Generally, that happens with the deconstruction, and have not.
Bob, did you have any issues with rats when you took out the old plant?
Not to my knowledge. So we did general construction. If we had a large issue, I'm sure that would have filtered back to us, but no.
And following up on that, when you construct the new plant, is there going to be a great deal of excavation?
So yes, there's a good bit. So it's a little bit to pour the foundation. The foundation is 5 or 6 feet deep in areas that we're going to pour the slab to accommodate the building. There's going to be some piping down there, so it's a little bit more complex. But we're not having a below surface structure. So it's just going to be a surface, predominantly a well-designed surface foundation.
And the existing piping that's there that I guess you'll be tying into, how is that going to work? Is there going to be a great deal of disturbance to existing piping discharging from the current temporary plant?
So that it's a wonderful thing. So the temporary plant now is being fed underground by pipes, and it's just, I don't know, 20 feet from the old plant to where the new plant is. So that's just going to be a below grade trench that we're going to continue to run the pipes in up to the entrance of the plant. So that's all on our site. The work, and it's 20 feet from the temporary plant to the new plant.
Thanks, Bob. Moving forward, our next question, how can I get my backyard soil tested for contaminants?
Can we take that one?
I do.
So I would say there's a very low likelihood that there's any soil contamination anywhere around the facility in the surrounding neighborhood, because there was as Bob talked, the site was capped and there was confirmatory sampling conducted around the edge of the cap, when that was built in the 90s, mid 90s. So from a contaminant transport standpoint, the confirmation samples would have identified any additional areas that might have been above cleanup standards in soil that weren't underneath that cap. And so that what the confirmatory samples confirmed that wasn't the case. That being said, I think myself, Bob, Angie, Sharon, if there is a specific individual who feels that there's a rationale for looking closer at their property, if they have questions about it, that's dealt with better on a one-on-one investigation. You know, we did conduct surface soil sampling when we conducted the response on Rittenhouse Circle. That was a very focused and finite area, and we identified and addressed those issues. But it's really more of a individual contact. When we're done with the questions, there was one last slide that I'll put up that has, and we can put it in the chat too, the contact information for EPA, where people can reach out to Bob, Angie, myself, and talk further about those concerns.
Thanks, Josh. Moving forward, what is total remediation expected to, or sorry, when is the total remediation expected to be complete? And what was the threat to the homes on Rittenhouse Circle?
Do you want me to do this one?
Sure.
Sure. So, all right. So this is a very interesting question to answer. In the short term, everything on the surface has been addressed, and as Bob was explaining, the construction of the remediation should be done by the end of next year. Maybe we do some additional groundwater extraction wells that we install in 2026. The contamination from this site that has moved down into where the groundwater is below the ground surface, we've already been pumping since the early 2000s, and now we're essentially resetting the cleanup. And the default bare minimum is assuming 30 years. But the reality is that when these contaminants move down into either the rock and the gravel and the sand, or the bedrock that is usually below that, bedrock that's got cracks and fissures, that bedrock can act as a sponge to soak up contamination, and it can travel very far and very deep in very tiny cracks, and there can be many of them. And it's hard, if not nearly impossible, to pump all the water from all of them. But even if you could, the general rule is for as long as that contamination has been sitting there, you're going to need to be able to pump it out for at least as that long in order to basically draw it out by flushing the groundwater through. And as Bob discussed, this site was operating many, many decades ago. So it's likely that some form of remediation, pumping the groundwater in order to lower the contaminant levels in the aquifer, will be going on for several more decades. There's no specific date where we could reliably say, yes, by 2050 something or 2070 something, we guarantee. That being said, technologies do advance. We're doing stuff now that was not even considered possible a few decades ago. So there's always opportunities to accelerate the cleanup if opportunities present themselves. And then to answer the question on Rittenhouse Circle, generally what happened is when the contamination was released from National Wood Preservers and it leached down into the ground, there was, as Bob said, diesel oil that was impregnated with PCP and other contaminants. And those oils dripped down through the subsurface, and some of it pooled on top of the bedrock that is several feet below to 10 or 20 feet below the ground surface. And it was just sitting there on top of the bedrock. What we believe happened is, that folks will recall, in 2018, we had at least 50% more precipitation than usual. We saw a dramatic rise in the water table, and that caused groundwater to move up higher, closer to the ground surface, where we saw groundwater discharging, daylighting into people's backyards on Rittenhouse Circle. We had sump pumps that were running constantly. We were detecting contamination that previously had been well below the surface, sitting on top of the bedrock, dissolving and being brought to the surface. So we instituted a cleanup where we removed the soil that had been contaminated as a result. We put in additional groundwater collection points, and we put in waterproofing and sumps in all of the homes where we identified contaminated water in the crawl spaces or in the basements. And that's all being pumped now and sent to the site.
All right.
Thank you. So trying to move through. I know we're getting ready to hit the 15-minute mark here for our meeting. Why will it take a year to construct the prefab building?
So we were working with our contractors. There's a good bit of work, especially on a government site, that we have a considerable amount of oversight. So there's the building itself, which is a few months, but there's a lot of tie-ins that occur with this. So there's coordination with PICO, transformers that have to go in that we consider part of the building build, a lot of piping network that has to be tied in underground. So when we say the building, it's not just the erection of the building itself, it's all of the infrastructure that goes along with it. And it's about the same. We just come off of a plant of about the same size, and the schedule is very similar.
Thanks, Bob.
All right.
Next question. What contamination impact was felt by residents residing on Woodley prior to and after discovery?
Woodley Road is north of the property. It's north of Paddock Park. And based upon all of the groundwater data that we have and all the testing that we've done, to my knowledge, there's no evidence of any impact directly anywhere, even north of anywhere in Paddock Park. There's been extensive vapor testing that's been done in buildings and in the YMCA to make sure that there's no vapors that are coming off of the groundwater or off the soil. As I mentioned earlier, confirmatory sampling has been conducted around the site when the cap was built, so that there's no evidence that suggests there's any soil contamination that ever extended or really moved north of where kind of our property line is, through maybe storm runoff. And from a groundwater standpoint, we don't our boundaries don't currently indicate. Groundwater generally flows from the northwest to the southeast or the east in this area. There's generally, you can think of when groundwater is flowing underneath the surface, think of it like a current. Like it's got a direction and it's got a velocity. And the groundwater is going from kind of, you're looking down on a map from left to right, from that map that Bob was showing earlier. Woodley is kind of to the north and kind of to the left a little bit. So we wouldn't expect groundwater contamination generally to move in that direction. That being said, one of those drilling locations that we wanted to get to last year that we did not have an ability to do so is up near Paddock Park. So we want to go up and basically put a bow on that and drill one final boring in that area to collect groundwater data and verify all the other lines of evidence that suggest there's no impact north of the site.
Thanks, Josh. Next question. At that expected rate of filtration, how many years does EPA anticipate water will need to be cleaned, or will this be done indefinitely?
So I think Josh has answered that a little bit. The planned lifetime for this plant, our design criteria is 30 years. It's probably expected that it will run most of those 30 years unless there's an alternate technology that the team can find that will shorten that. But certainly the plant's designed to run 30 years, and often they do.
Thanks, Bob. Next question. Does EPA plan to stay here and fund in perpetuity?
Go ahead, Josh.
I would say the plan is that there will be either be a combination of EPA and then eventually Pennsylvania DEP will take over operating the treatment plant until all of the cleanup objectives for groundwater have been achieved. That's standard for Superfund. The responsible parties have cashed out, but currently we're funded with government appropriations, and Superfund law requires EPA and any state that's party to a cleanup to continue to fund a cleanup until cleanup standards are met.
And I just want to make one point here, and I think Josh mentioned it, but it's worth saying again, is we partner with Pennsylvania DEP on our work that we do. The state has run this plant for most of its lifetime, and turned it back. And we're going to build and prove out and run the plant. And then we're looking for the state to continue to run that long term. So there's a joint partnership on handling remediation in the area.
Thank you. Next question, where are the collected PCPs stored and how are they transported once the maximum amount is collected?
Okay, so they are absorbed in media, either in filter or activated carbon on the site, very concentrated solids, and those are shipped off to a licensed hazardous waste landfill for disposal.
Thank you. Next question, has there been testing along Taylor's Run Creek?
I think that's referring to Naylor's Run. I did a quick search and I didn't see
Oh,
any
sorry.
No, I mean it says Taylor's Run.
Yeah.
But I think so I think we covered that a bit. Like there was extensive sampling that was done and there's ongoing monitoring of Naylor's Run. There was a secondary area of contamination that had transported from the site through an abandoned sewer line that nobody was aware of, and it came up at the far eastern end in some recreation open space property owned by the township, where additional contamination had contaminated the surface and locally was affecting the stream there. That was addressed during the last phase of our cleanup between 2008 and 2010. So there was plenty of cleanup done, and confirmation samples are always collected to verify that we meet our cleanup standards. But there will be ongoing stream monitoring for many, many more years before anything would be altered along the testing for Naylor's Run.
Thanks, Josh. Next question, please explain potential phase 2, what it might be and location.
So really not well defined yet. So it's first we're going to look at Josh's model, and Ian Bingham is going to also take a look, and we're going to look at if there's an opportunity to take additional well water that will improve the aquifer. So the thought would be we have available capacity in the plant with the thought that we may have wells. So it will probably entail doing something based on the model at hand.
Thank you.
And the one other thing I would add is as part of our work, we will in addition to groundwater collection, there's stormwater management upgrades that we will have to also perform as part of phase 2, which I think everybody will benefit from. All the water, the precipitation that falls in this business park area ends up kind of coming to a point at the western end of the property where the treatment plant is being constructed. So we're going to install some upgrades to help manage that stormwater, get it out and away from the site in a more appropriate way, prevent some more of the localized flooding during the bigger storms where possible.
Thanks, Josh. I'm not sure if this is a question. I'm just going to read it. So the soil along the creek is below any hazardous levels. Vegetable gardens, the oil was visible up until around 2000 or so.
So yeah, based upon all the data that we've ever collected, there's no indication from anything that we have areas that were missed. I kind of feel like I feel like a broken record at this point, where we always take verification samples. But if somebody specifically has a concern about anywhere, like again, come back and talk with Bob or myself or Angie, and we can always kind of look at what that concern is and go from there.
Thank you. Next question, what is the life of the cap that was installed under the Mr. Storage area?
Good question. It's a permanent feature of the facility. So the functioning piece of the cap is clay soil. So that's permanent. It doesn't break down. What's good about clay, it's impervious to rainwater. There's a geotextile fabric that's in there in underneath the clay, but it's protected from weather by the clay. It's not really the plastic geotextile fabric is not the primary functional piece, but it's out of the UV sun and it's protected by the clay, and it is a long-term permanent fix. They build buildings like Mr. Storage on top of clay all over the country as permanent solutions. So it's expected to be permanent.
And the liner is under there too, which is
Right.
plastic.
Right. And EPA always tests and retests and verifies. And we generally have a plan after even we're finished that we do 5-year reviews and go back and reassess.
Thank you. This is kind of building off of the question that you were just answering. With the predicted increase in precipitation due to climate change, is there any risk of contamination from below the cap being released?
So that is the function of the cap, right? It's to be impervious to surface water and infiltration, and has been functioning in that utility since. So no.
Yeah, and and below the cap. So precipitation, Bob is right. Precipitation doesn't reach any of the contaminated soils below the cap in the liner. Any of the soil that's deep enough that it gets into the wet zone of the aquifer. We used to have groundwater extraction wells within the cap itself, pumping water out, and those ended up kind of declining significantly. But we still have the groundwater extraction wells surrounding the eastern part of the site at the edge, where if there is any kind of residual leaching that's still occurring, those groundwater wells those pumping wells are intended to capture that contamination as it's moving eastward.
Thank you. Next question was the aquatic life in Naylor's Run Creek, especially the fish, etc., affected by the site, and has it come back yet? And then there's another, it's all the same. So can wildlife and fish survive in Naylor's Run Creek now?
So yes, they were affected. Yes, they have come back. They are living there now, and they're monitored regularly. DEP, Pennsylvania DEP, performs regular biannual. I think it's biannual at this point, sampling of the different types of biota in the creek to evaluate the contaminant levels there and the overall health of the ecological community. And it's compared to another non-impacted reference creek in Ridley Creek State Park, I believe. So we have seen very good bounce back, and there's fish and other aquatic life in the creek.
Thank you. So at this time, there are no open questions. Just want to quickly, we're at 7:57, touch base on some of the questions one of the questions that I was able to answer while the presentation was running. This presentation will be added to the Havertown PCP Superfund sites profile page. That information is right there on the screen. You could also scan the QR code with your smartphone. I'll probably get that uploaded sometime early tomorrow. And or if the township is able to share the link for this recording, I will also host that on the site profile page. Again, my name is Angela Ithier. I'm the community involvement coordinator for the site. You've seen Josh Barber and Bob Stank, remedial project managers for the site, and have heard the presentation. We thank you all so much for joining us today. At any time, feel free to contact Bob or myself. And if you contact me, I'll do my best to get your questions over to an expert to get some information. But as Bob said, we look forward to being a good neighbor in the community and, building a good groundwater treatment plant that does what it needs to do for the community. Bob or Josh, any parting words?
Thank you very much. Thank you for a long history of work. I'm happy to come into such a great situation and a long-term great communication. So we take our the fact that we're in your community very seriously and very appreciative of the good work that you've allowed us to do.
Well said. I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
All right. David, do you want to
We'll
add
be slowing
anything?
down now. Thank you all very much for being here. Josh,
Wonderful.
Bob, Angela, Eduardo, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.